Okay, now it's time for a deja vu one. So this one doesn't look too long. The last one I did, it'll probably end up being like split into two, depending how I feel. But anyway, probably going to be lazy and it'll be a big, long 25-minute video. But anyway, after the Truth Spy saga earlier this year, I shouldn't be surprised anymore when Stalkerware companies get hacked the same way 2 or 3 times. But I didn't expect to have to already write a follow-up to the third article in the series, but here we are. An anonymous source tipped me off about another way to access the admin portal discussed in the write-up. In the original hack last summer, my source managed to access an admin portal for web detective? What kind of SQL injection and cookie reuse? While those vulnerabilities seem to be fixed now, with one of the servers targeted in the original attack being offline, there was an easier way in. And I found this. Let's see. Email not valid. Simply guess some commonly used URLs, and after brute forcing for a sign-up page, I found this. Yeah, it really is that easy. You sign up using the form and immediately gain access to the admin portal. The front end looks fairly similar to the ownSpy affiliate network dashboard, with many pages having been simply copied over, which probably resulted in accidental inclusion of the registration page. A key difference to affiliate dashboard, however, is that the admin portal shows you the personal information of all customers on the service. API log page shows list of actions performed by a user, by and on user accounts, signups, credit charges, device activations, account deletions. Clicking on email address shows all customer and target device info, letting you blah, blah, blah. Most data ownSpy collects is indeed end-to-end encrypted, and neither support staff nor any bad actors with access to ownSpy systems can see victim data. The one big exception is location data, which isn't encrypted in any way, despite being one of the most sensitive pieces of information available. The log also confirms that the built-in device delete feature was used in last summer's hack to disconnect all devices from the service. It is not clear, however, if the pre-hack data was restored by ownSpy. At this point, I want to dive a bit deeper, since the exact connection between Web Detective and ownSpy still wasn't quite clear. Reading through the write-up from last year again, I realized there was a mention of yet another brand name I hadn't seen before, SaferSpy. Upon checking it out, both the landing page and portal are pretty much verbatim copies of those in Web Detective, but in English instead. Despite being made for the Brazilian market, they both even point to the same servers internally, so I was able to just sign into the admin portal with the credentials I created on Web Detective's end, with the only difference being the customers displayed. The only other difference between the two is who runs each service. Web Detective's domain is registered to Brazilian businessman, while SafeSpy has no names linked to it, but uses a completely different domain registrar and hoster. Pretty clear that sites are most likely white-labeled resellers of ownSpy. However, they share a backend in the same city as Mobile Innovations, a Spanish company behind ownSpy, hosted by OVH's Spanish branch instead of their Brazilian branch. So OVH is a pretty interesting service. Cock.ly, anyway, they do web servers, private web servers, and yeah. In an attempt to get some answers to my questions, I reached out to Antonio, the Spanish CEO of Mobile Innovations. He didn't respond to any requests, but when I just checked the servers again a few days later, the Web Detectives and SaferSpy admin portals had been reworked to remove my access. Sign-up form had been removed, account was completely deleted, and ownSpy affiliate network portal vanished entirely from the internet, now redirecting to the ownSpy landing page and leaving me as neither an admin nor an affiliate. And even though Caltrava didn't respond to my email, he might have been too busy with his AA podcast, I'm treating the super fast vulnerability fixes in both SaferSpy and Web Detective infrastructure as further evidence that they are indeed reseller sites mostly operated by Mobile Innovation themselves. Would have made my research for this piece significantly faster and easier. Oh, decompiling the Android client shows this to be true, blah, blah, blah. Cool. So let's go on to the next one. This one's a bit longer, but tattling on pcTattleTale. Let's see. Brian Fleming comes off as an average marketing guru from Michigan, even if he's oddly obsessed with the rather specific field of online lawn care marketing. Side venture over 2 decades now, has been a player in the Stalkerware industry. Originally acted as a contractor, wrote the Stalkerware code for pcTattleTale. Owned by Fleming, would become close business partners. In fact, that Fleming would score 50% revenue share of the company, blah, blah, blah. Became a one-man operation. He still runs to this day. Apart from that, supports Windows PCs on top of the typical mobile phones. Features a live feed of screenshots from the victim's devices. Besides the usual tools like access to location data, of course, the private information has been repeatedly exposed via 2 separate IDOR vulns from 2021, in which individual Amazon S3 URLs was found to be guessable, though difficult, and another form from just a few days ago in which researcher Eric Deigel found a bug in the API that greatly simplified access to sensitive data across any registered device. A number of businesses using it. This most notably included various hotels owned by Wyndham, whose check-in computers had pcTattleTale installed, leaking personal... Ooh, that is not good. Why would you do that? That does not... So, again, you are installing a piece of spyware onto a computer where people enter sensitive information, and there you now have that information stored. And now you have, so Wyndham, there is legal grounds to sue Wyndham because they have not properly secured customer payment info. Oh, just a day after the TechCrunch article came out, an unrelated hacker found yet another bug, which allowed them to gain full access to backend infrastructure, causing websites for both businesses to go offline, being replaced with a short write-up on how the hack happened and links to the server data. In it, the hacker remarked that it took them all of 15 minutes to discover the bug. Raw AWS credentials intended to allow screenshots to be directly uploaded to the storage bucket, which is already terrible enough on its own, but it's worsened by the fact that these credentials are the same for all devices and provide full unscoped access to Fleming's AWS infrastructure. I'm honestly surprised that no one has noticed this before, especially when the desktop version of the client ships with AWS S3 library as an obvious sidecar DLL that should have raised concerns long ago. So the fact that you put your own credentials in for your entire infrastructure across both businesses is bad enough. So one business is compromised by the other because you have bad cyber housekeeping. When going through big dumps like these under intense time pressure, blah, 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 blah. There was a public deface. I only have so much time. I like to start with a broad sweep, trying to gain an understanding of what's where and how it all goes together after going kind of mad pouring through the data for 15 hours straight. Vastness of it all became clear. Currently holds 17 terabytes of victim device screenshots, with some of them dating back to 2018. Let's see. The data dump doesn't contain any of the screenshots, does contain just about everything else. Database dumps, full web root, contents of various other buckets. Let's see. Dumped home directory, random directories, haven't been touched over a decade. Let's see. Dear Don, you have asked for our advice on various aspects of limiting liability in connection with your company's marketing of pcTattleTale. We have initially agreed to advise you regarding certain statements on your website, namely the terms of use, disclaimer, and end-user license agreement, to provide information on the status and content of state and federal statuses concerning spyware, and provide general comment on potential third-party liability. Issues that I expect to discuss with you at a later date that will not be addressed in this letter, including issues of limiting liability through the corporate form of organization. So, was there an LLC organized for this, or what? Let's double check where... If he didn't have... if it was a DBA, that would be very interesting rather than an LLC. Something even more surprising I found on the PHP backend code, however, was a super simple web shell hidden in an unassuming subfolder. Tries to masquerade as part of the backend, but the obfuscated part of the tiny shell lets anyone execute arbitrary PHP by simply setting a cookie. What makes this file such an interesting find, though, is that the shell has been present since or at least December 2011. Wow. That's after I graduated. It is impossible to tell whether the shell was placed there by pcTattleTale or by a threat actor. Either way, it reveals that pcTattleTale has been backdoored for basically forever and may have had data exfiltrated from it for years by external actors. Couldn't reach out to Fleming for comment on it, so questions about this do remain open. Let's see. To make my impact assessment a bit easier, give me 2 seconds. See, I filtered the database down to just affected devices and users searching for interesting keywords and going through all of the email domains one by one to find notable companies. One of the first things I found was a pattern of Fleming regularly installing his own spyware on both his personal and work devices for testing, and then leaving it on there for hours or even days, allowing for a unique look into the operation of Stalkerware business. Numerous recordings of his phones over the years, I first learned that Fleming has probably a dozen different crypto wallets, while unfortunately never got to see the balance. His Crypto Bro Twitter account definitely corroborate this obsession. Let's see. Yeah. One of the sequences of screenshots from his computer allowed me to view parts of his Evernote account, including a note from early 2023. Plan to remove bad actors and misuse of pcTattleTale. Short visible excerpt speaks of the plan having been discussed with someone, presumably a law enforcement officer, during a search warrant. While I have no further information about the case in question, this leads me to believe that Fleming may have started to face potential legal consequences for some uses of pcTattleTale. Could also explain the marketing pivot around the time from spouse stalking to employee and child monitoring, which are unfortunately more legally and socially acceptable. Okay, again, if you build trust with your spouse and children, then it becomes a lot less necessary. But there still needs to be some monitoring in the case of children in order to keep them safe online, or when you allow them online. Besides Fleming himself, I largely ignored private use of the software. I have covered similar incidents before, focused on unique and far more interesting parts of this breach. Amount of the corporate users of pcTattleTale, notable examples. So let's actually go, so search warrant. It's interesting that he would, with Evernote, it's like, I don't think Evernote encrypts the notes that you store. And so you've basically got this whole investigation that is being stored, that can be subpoenaed from Evernote on it and what he's writing about it and use it as evidence. More hotels, law firms with sequences showing confidential lawyer communications and client bank routing information, bank with various locations across the U.S., schools and child care centers monitoring employees or students, revealing both student and parental personal data. So I've seen in schools, I know in schools they have a lot of the spyware on there to watch students and make sure they're not doing anything sketchy. But what's interesting is if the student gets a laptop, a school computer device, and doesn't return it at the end of the school year, they may hold on to it, and a lot of that stuff becomes somewhat inactive because a school isn't actively using it because they don't need to. And even some of the filters may not work that are installed on the system. I've heard of situations where parents got mad at a school district because their child was watching porn on the school device during the summer when that device should have been returned to the school district. But the parents did not take the initiative to make sure that the device was returned to the school district. And this becomes a situation of, like, again, child monitoring. Do the parents and the child have a good relationship and trust? At least one employee of a Palestinian government agency, HR department of Boeing. Oh, this is very pertinent for this year. Revealing employee personal information. Credible amounts of screenshots containing credit card information, passwords, and so on. Again, payment information. Yeah, you've got payment information out in the open that is not properly secured. So now you have all kinds of other stuff that way that you have to worry about. Point of sale systems, showing partial credit card and personal info, number of companies who appear to be selectively and secretly installing on employee devices when they're suspected of wrongdoing. Bug bounty hunter who installed the software on their personal device, presumably for pen testing. The entire hour-long sequence consists of them installing and immediately trying to figure out how to uninstall the app again. So it is interesting because you suspect wrongdoing. And there are other ways to do this, like especially in the workplace. Like you can just put hidden microphones in places and do similar things and get evidence from it. You don't have to install stuff on. I don't know if it was a personal device or a work device, but still, if you're using your work device for personal use, you've got something wrong with you, because you should not expect a company-owned device to be private in all reality, because that device is owned by the company, not by you. You are being loaned the company-owned device for work purposes, not for your own personal use. If you install company software onto your device and they start spying in everything that you do, then maybe we've got a problem. If they are looking for like what kind of abuse are they making of our software, that's a different thing. Let's see. Fleming had his account locked by Amazon. Interesting. It took Fleming over 20 hours to take the defaced website offline. Long time was not for lack of trying. His own spyware recorded him clumsily attempting to restore the site fairly early on, but ultimately failing to do so. It's now been entirely down for a few hours, sending screenshots to the S3 bucket. Continued until Fleming's AWS account was locked down by Amazon shortly before publishing this article. The software will be back, and whether the software will be back and what the consequences for the company and Fleming could be is unclear, but the FTC has previously ordered another U.S. Stalkerware developer to cease operations entirely after they suffered a breach of their own. So, yeah, I mean, you've got payment details. So the FTC could go after that, or like you could have people that go after, sue them because their payment info and personal info has been leaked online. If you liked the content, if you enjoyed it, if you think I deserve it, like, comment, subscribe, leave any criticisms you have or what have you. I appreciate it. Feed that algorithm, like I said, and I will see you guys in the next one.